Good day, students, and welcome to Theme 3, Project Management Maturity. So, at the end of this theme, you need to be able to understand the different levels of project management maturity, understand how project management maturity relates to the project management knowledge areas in the PMBok, understand how to measure project management maturity of an organization using the project management maturity model, and understand how to make recommendations regarding improvement of project management processes. Right, so those are basically the outcomes. So let's get to the material. So this slideshow was put together from the book by Crawford called Project Management Maturity Model, the second edition. The Amazon link to this book is available over here. Now, if you remember from last semester when we were talking about project management, and we had this slide or this cartoon slide to tell us what project management is all about, and you know that this is what the customer explained and this is what the customer really needed, and then all the things that happened in between. Now, project management maturity is all about taking what the customer explained and every time getting to what the customer really needed. So what it's about is taking out the star performer. Now, maturity models first started in the software industry, and the reason why people got interested in maturity models was that they found that on some software projects there was success, and on other software projects in the same organization there was failure. So what they did was they tried to determine what are the main criteria that need to be addressed in order to get to successful software, and then they also said that this criteria needs to be applicable across the whole organization, because it doesn't help if you have one or two software engineers that are the star performers that are doing software properly, because at the end of the day your software projects are going to fail. So what you need is maturity across the organization. And so since then, maturity models have been used and implemented in various industries and in various places, and of course in project management as well. So what is organizational project management maturity? And it's basically about containing consistent results in the project environment, and it requires measuring and understanding many variables. If you think about project management in the latest PMBok of the 5th edition, there are now 10 knowledge areas. And one needs to have a certain level of maturity in each of these knowledge areas in order to be successful. And in most of our organizations, you have projects and project managers that are highly successful. But that is unfortunately based on the individual. So what we want to do is we want to take the individual out. Sorry, I see that there is a mistake there. And we want to make the whole organization successful, not just the projects of that specific project manager. And looking at the organizational project management maturity gives us a holistic picture of how our organization as a whole is performing in terms of project management. All right, and so we want a holistic picture of organizational performance. Sorry about that. So what is project management maturity? So it's basically a progressive development of enterprise-wide project management approach, or you can call it a methodology, or you can call it a strategy. And in essence, it's a decision-making process. So it's about making decisions about how we should be doing projects and how the whole organization should be doing projects. And so once we've gone through the maturity model, you will ask yourself, but now what level of maturity is appropriate? Should each organization be at level 5? Now, the level of maturity that you aspire to and that you want your organization to be at will vary from organization to organization, and it's based on the specific goals of that organization. So if our organization is only using projects to do organizational improvements, and for the rest we do mostly operations, so we're a production facility and we are making glasses every day, and that's what we do. So we do the same thing repetitively every day, and projects is not our speciality. Well, then probably being at level 2 or being at level 3 in terms of project maturity is good enough. But if our goal is to be a project-oriented organization and the main thing that we do as an organization is projects, then we probably need to improve our project management. And that's where the strategy comes in. So the organizational strategy will tell us as well at what level of project maturity we need to be. It also doesn't help striving and setting a milestone to become a level 5 organization if the resources in our organization do not have the required capabilities. So by saying this, what we are saying is that it costs money to achieve or to improve your level of project management maturity, because if you need to improve and your resources don't have the correct capability, it means you have to invest in your people and you have to train them. Okay, and it also depends on the scope of what we do in terms of projects, which I've already addressed, and the needs of the organization. So where do we want to go? Where do we see ourselves in 5 years from now? Is projects going to be a major component of how we achieve organizational strategy in this organization? And if that is the case, we definitely need to improve our maturity level. So why is project management maturity important? So if you are at the correct level of project management maturity, you are capable of on-time project delivery. You can ensure cost reductions. You will have organizational efficiency, and this will lead to profitability. Right, so the project management maturity model that we're going to be talking about in this course and that you are going to be using in your assignment is the one that was developed by PM Solutions. The reason I use this one is because the literature on it is quite easily available. It's just a book. And also it is quite simple to use, and it also has a self-assessment tool, and so you're going to be using that self-assessment tool in your organizations. Basically, it's based on the fact that it looks at the different knowledge areas that come from the PMBok. And then it uses the Software Engineering Institute's 5 levels of maturity. So level 1 is the initial process, level 2 is the structured process and standards, level 3 is organizational standards and institutionalized process, level 4 is a managed process, and level 5 is optimizing the process. And we will talk about each of those in more detail as we progress. So each knowledge area of the PMBok is then broken down into specific components, and there are then specific things that we require in order to say that we are at, for example, level 3 in project integration management. So for example, for scope management, the 5 components that have to be in place is scope planning and management, requirements definition at a business level, requirements definition at a technical level, the work breakdown structure, and scope change control. And by looking at each of these and determining what level we are at, we can then determine what our scope management maturity level is. So here is the entire maturity level model. You can download my slides and then you can look at the model in more detail, and I suggest that you read through this before you do your assignment, because this is going to help you as well to understand the types of questions that you need to ask and the types of things that you are looking for. So here are the levels. So how a maturity model works is it says that we would like to get to level 5, for example, but before we can get to level 5, we need to understand where we are. All right, so if we are at level 1, we have our initial processes in place. Level 2 is we have structured process and there are standards. Level 3 is organizational standards and institutionalized process. Level 4 is we have a managed process, and level 5 is there is an optimized process. And we never stop at level 5 because we can always improve and we can always continuously learn, and that's where we want to be. Knowledge organizations, learning organizations. So you can see that this also links to our theme on knowledge management that we will be doing later in the semester. Right, so a little bit more detail on each of the levels. So level 1, we have ad hoc processes. There is management awareness of the fact that there is such a thing as project management and that we maybe require it, but there are no established practices and standards. And individual project managers are not held accountable. So if an individual project manager does do something and does follow a proper process, and the project manager that sits next to him or her does not do that, it doesn't really matter because no one is held accountable. And the metrics of how we are doing on projects are informally collected. So there isn't a standard according to which we all have to report on how our projects are doing on a regular basis. Then level 2 is where we have a structured process and we have standards. So here we have basic processes, but they are not yet standard on all projects. So we use them on large, highly visible projects. Management supports and encourages the use, but it is not a requirement that all projects should use these standards. There is a mix of intermediate and summary level information. So this is in terms of the metrics that we capture. The estimates and schedules are based on expert knowledge and on generic tools. And mostly our organization has a project-centric focus. Level 3, here we have organizational standards and institutionalized processes. So all processes are standard for all projects, and that means that what we are doing is repeatable. So if we give a project to one project manager, we know that that project manager will follow the same processes as another project manager, and so we should be able to get to the same results by following the same process. So whether we're getting to good results, that is still open for debate, because we haven't optimized our process and we don't know whether we're following the best process, but we can repeat the same mistakes. Management has institutionalized the process, so they insist that each project should follow the process. We now have summary as well as detailed information on how things are going and the metrics that we use. We collect baseline information, and there is informal collection of actuals. So baseline information is basically the plan according to which we are working. So each project now has a plan, but there is not a standard process by which we collect actuals. And then the estimates and schedules may be based on industry standards and organizational specifics. So if you remember last time, the estimates were based on expert knowledge and generic tools. We are now improving because we are looking at industry standards and we are looking at the organizational specifics. All right, so level 4 is a managed process. So our processes are now integrated with our corporate processes. So the problem with level 3 is that we have a standard for project management, but our financial system and our quality system and our configuration management system, for example, is not necessarily integrated with the project management process. Whereas at level 4, everything is integrated. So if I want to know the configuration management status on my project, I should be able to find that out by a click of a button. Management mandates compliance, and management takes an organizational entity view. So they are not just looking at specific individual projects anymore, they are now looking at all the projects in the organization. And again, the theme that we're going to do on project management information systems will link to this, because if we have a proper project management information system, management will be able to see that organizational entity view. There's a solid analysis of project performance, so we don't just look at the baseline, we also track the actuals against the baseline. So now our estimates and schedules are based on organizational specifics, and management can use the data to make decisions because the data is accurate, the data is current, and the data is up to date. Then level 5 is optimized process. So with the optimized process, the processes to measure project effectiveness and efficiency are in place. So we don't just know that we can repeat it, and we don't just know that our data is good. We are also making sure that from project to project, we are improving effectiveness and efficiency. So processes are in place to improve project performance, and management now focuses on continuous improvement. And you can see that level 5 is quite an expensive level to get to, because this implies that everybody in the organization is trained in project management. Everybody in the organization understands the processes and knows how to apply the standards. Right, so remember that our model has the levels on the x-axis, and then on the y-axis we have the knowledge areas. So this model that we're talking about now is based on the PMBok because it is an accepted standard with some best practice included. But it's not good enough to just say, what is our maturity level in terms of scope management. We have to break that down into the key or major components that relate to successful implementation of project management. And then these components are examined independently to determine adequacy. And later on, when we get to the self-assessment model, you will see how exactly each of the knowledge areas is broken down into those key components. So the self-assessment survey checklist breaks the knowledge areas down into critical components that have to be addressed for maturity. And then each component is assessed for the organization. The assessment is done via interview and by collecting secondary data such as project management standards. So here is the self-assessment survey. So you can see that for each of the knowledge areas, they have broken it down into a little bit more detail. So integration management, for example, has deliverables identification, scope definition, project management plan development, project management plan execution, change control, project closure, project management information system, project office, and then you look at which level is each of these knowledge areas. Okay, and I'm not going to go through all of the knowledge areas because you can work through that and you can read through that, and you're going to be doing this assessment in your organization. So at the end of the day, you will be intimately aware of what each knowledge area is broken down into. And here is just the last 4 of the knowledge areas broken down. Okay, so how does it work? So I go and I gather information in my organization, and in the final analysis I say that for scope planning and management, we are at maturity level 2. Remember that maturity level 2 is the structured process and standard. So that means we have basic processes, but it's not standard on all projects. Whereas you will see the other ones, we have organizational standards and institutionalized processes. And at the end of the day, what I then do is I mark where we are at. And this organization is at level 2 of maturity. The reason is that you cannot be at a higher level of maturity than the lowest level of maturity of your organization.